Welcome back to In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show in our iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. I'm Big Dan Wilson, and this week I have the pleasure of introducing you to Farmer Lee Jones. Now, Lee is from the Chef's Garden in beautiful Huron, Ohio. Lee, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Big Dan Wilson. I am so excited to be on. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I've been looking forward to having you on the air, too, because what you do in Huron is just amazing. And before we get started, before we talk a little bit about the Chef's Garden and all the wonderful things that you're doing from a production standpoint, let's talk about growing up in that area. What was it like growing up in Huron?
Oh, absolutely fabulous. Of course, we're a lakefront area, and it was a huge fishing community. And there used to be a whole string of fishing houses, and lots and lots and lots of fish got harvested out of Lake Erie, and they were shipped on rail cars into New York, sold a lot of fish from this community, and it was just a nice, small community. Everybody knew each other. Huron is about 7,000 people, and it's just a microclimate. At one point, Erie County hosted the largest concentration of vegetable growers of any county in the world.
Wow.
And it was because of the microclimate. European settlers recognized this area. It's all rich, sandy loam. In fact, the ground that we farm on was lake bottom about 11,000 years ago, and just tremendous growing area. And those European settlers recognized it, and they grew vegetables here. And many of them were family farms that truck farmed. The largest farm was about 100 acres because that's about all one family could handle.
Wow, when you talk about the agriculture opportunities and you talk about the environment, having the right soil types really is what it's all about. And so you mentioned a little bit about that. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that? You know, we've done stories up in Willard, Ohio, where they have that muck, those rich soils there too, but wasn't really familiar with Huron and that type of soil. Why don't you talk about how important that is to the growing and having a great growing environment?
Well, we really follow a premise of regenerative agriculture, and we believe all life starts with healthy soil. It's really integral to growing healthy vegetables. You can't talk about soil without talking about health. There's in 1 tablespoon of soil, there is more life in a tablespoon of soil than there are human beings on the earth. And when that gets out of balance, everything else gets out of balance. The nutritional level in vegetables is down 80% in a 100-year period. Now, a lot of folks maybe are younger than you and I are, Dan, and 100 years sounds like a long time, but we've come to recognize that 100 years is a pretty short period of time. And for the nutritional level to go down 80% in 100 years is pretty alarming. And the other number that we have to factor in, and we believe that they are really tied together. In the same 100-year period, a 3,000% increase in kidney, liver, heart, cancer disease, attention deficit disorder, autism, childhood obesity, allergies, diabetes. My guess is, Big Dan, there isn't one listener today that doesn't have somebody in their family or immediate circle of friends that doesn't have one or more of those diseases. And when you look at that alarming rate of increase in a 100-year period, it's not sustainable. And we believe regenerative agriculture is really a key to turning this around. And we have been absolutely excited about the work that we're doing here, and this isn't anything we invented. In many ways, my dad had a saying that the only thing we're trying to do is get as good as the growers were 100 years ago. And if you look at it, it was pre-chemical, it was pre-synthetic fertilizer. They were rotating crops, truly rotating. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about, well, this year you got soybeans, next year you put field corn, next year you put wheat, and then double crop with beans. I'm talking about going back to biblical times in the Old Testament. Let's harvest fruit for 6 years. On the 7th year, let the land sit fallow, and on the 8th year you had an abundant harvest. And that has really been exciting for us. And we don't follow that exact prescription, but regenerative agriculture, we believe, is a key to turning this around. And we're seeing significant results of following this methodology to take care of our soil.
We've spent a lot of time at the Ohio No-Till Conference every year, in fact, in Ada, Ohio, where we get the opportunity to talk to various producers and people who are dealing with production agriculture on a more of a micro scale, kind of similar to your kind of business, always talking about regenerative agriculture. And we've had the pleasure of interviewing Ray Archuleta. And the very first time that we spoke to him, his first words were, "The soil is alive." And maybe you can expound upon that a little bit, talking about how important it is to respect the soil, and from the standpoint of knowing that it is alive, and it's that integral part, that basis of producing healthy foods.
Well, and it really is. And, you look at the algal bloom problems that we're having in Lake Erie, in particular in the Western Basin, where it is even more shallow because it's warmer there. The farmers have been forced into a model that really is not sustainable or healthy long term. And, you follow the money. The chemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies making the big money, they recognize a way to be able to make the farmers more efficient. And I will tell you that the farmers in the United States are the most efficient at growing. We produce food cheaper than any other country in the world. The conundrum is we also have the highest health care in the world. We all, as adults, have gone and had blood work. We go and do blood work and we find out what the mineral levels are in our bodies. The same minerals that are in our body are the same mineral levels that should be in the soil. If they're deficient in the soil, they're deficient in our body. If we have mineral deficiencies in our body, we have compromised our immune system. And consequently, you have a 3,000% increase in kidney, liver, heart cancer disease, all those things we mentioned before. The key for us is really finding a way to get the balance. What's really cool, and if you can get your mind around the idea, we've all said as an adult, or we heard our parents say it, or we heard somebody else say it, maybe it was joking, maybe it was tongue-in-cheek, maybe we thought it was just an excuse to go sit in the sun, but they said, "Oh, I need some vitamin D, I'm going to go get some sunshine." There is so much more truth to that, Big Dan, than people really realize.
Yeah.
And if you can get your mind around the idea that your body is a receptacle for energy from the sun, then it's not such a far stretch or bridge to recognize that different types of plants will harvest different types of energy from the sun. So we have a lab set up here. We have 3 scientists on staff. We're testing mineral deficiencies. We're testing the nutrient deficiency, nitrate oxide levels in the soil. We want to understand what those deficiencies are. And once we get the understanding of the deficiencies, then we match up. Because what's really cool, and it's our personal belief that God designed a system far superior to anything we can fake out chemically or synthetically. It's more about working in harmony with nature rather than trying to outsmart it. But once we've identified those mineral deficiencies, we can match up clover, alfalfa, buckwheat, rye, vetch, sedan grass. We have up to 16 different varieties of plants that we will plant in a different mix to be able to capture the minerals that are deficient in the soil. For us, it's about trying to find the balance. When you can get the soil in balance, everything else works well. We have a saying: healthy soil, healthy vegetables, healthy people, healthy environment. And that's really the crux of what we're trying to do here at the Chef's Garden.
Well, I love the passion that you have.
We get excited when we get to talk about vegetables and soil.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
It really is. You're listening to the In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show and our iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. I'm Big Dan Wilson, and our guest this week is Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back right after this with more with Farmer Lee. Allen Davis Insurance Agency, your solutions provider in Wapakoneta, Lima, and Minster. Allen is a business owner and an active farmer. Trust Allen Davis Insurance Agency for auto, home, life, commercial, and total farm protection. For more information, check us out on the web at allendavisinsurance.com. Resource, Ohio's premier supplier of mulch, compost, stone, soil, salt, and more. A family-owned company here to help you improve your curb appeal with premium mulch and decorative stone. They also provide compost for your garden. We make and sell landscape products. Resource is also recycling, taking existing material and transforming it into something to enhance your landscape for commercial or home use. Call us today or check us out on the web at resourcemulch.com. Get more out of your harvest with a MacDon Flex Draper from Apple Farm Service. When you need more capacity, greater flexibility, and faster harvesting speeds, MacDon delivers. Engineered to follow field contours and provide an exceptionally close cut, Flex Drapers help maximize crop intake and reduce losses. Built for real-world conditions, MacDon is ready for whatever harvest throws your way. Stop by your nearest Apple Farm Service or visit applefarmservice.com/MacDon to see our inventory. Your outdoor fun starts here at Dad's Toy Shop. See us today for all of your favorite remote control land, air, and watercraft, and so much more. Dad's Toy Shop in downtown Wapakoneta is your one-stop shop for all of your hobby needs. If you're looking for prime cropland and whitetail habitat, you don't want to miss the next land auction from Dye Real Estate and Land Company. 126 acres in Amanda Township of prime Allen County farmland and hunting ground. Join us September 15th, 6 p.m. at Whitetail Acres Event Center in Lima, Ohio. Online bidding is also available from your area leader in land auctions, Dye Real Estate and Land Company. For more information on this and other upcoming auctions, go to dyerealestate.com. You're listening to the In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show and our iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. I'm Big Dan Wilson, and our guest today is Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio. We talked a little bit about the incredible soil types in Huron, growing up in Huron, but let's talk about the business itself. When we talk about the family business, it has really, you guys have really learned to pivot, or maybe the word is perseverance, to be where you're at today. So let's talk a little bit about that family history with the Chef's Garden.
Yes, and absolutely. It is a family business. There is no I in team, and we really believe that, and we wouldn't exist today if it weren't for family working together and sticking together and God guiding us along the way. My dad went to work for a very progressive vegetable grower. You've got to recognize and understand there were over 300 vegetable growers in this community. And it was really a model that we strive to achieve today, where we can buy local and we can consume from foods that were produced local. We had it. We had it right in our grasp, and we let it slip away.
Yeah.
If you look back, not that far ago, not that long ago, before roads and refrigeration had developed to the point where you had so much outside competition. And I'm talking like late 30s and the 40s and the mid-40s. The roads and refrigeration had not developed to the point where there was a lot of outside competition. As the roads and refrigeration got better, then you started seeing product coming in from Arizona, the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, California, New Mexico, these different areas where they have a longer growing season. And as that happened, that put pressure on. Every one of our listeners today, Big Dan, can think back to their childhood and remember the family-owned grocery stores that existed that are no longer there. They were pushed out because there was it was the Walmart syndrome, if you will, where a large corporation could buy and sell that product cheaper, and one by one, it pushed the small grocery stores out. The same thing happened with the family farms. Those small, what I call truck farmers, were pushed out. And Mr. Nichols recognized that coming. And so he invested in refrigeration, hydrocooling, distribution, sorting, sizing, packaging, marketing. And he bought from about 65 other growers from our community. And they packed all under one label. And they were able to supply places like maybe some of our listeners today can remember A&P, Big Bear, Pick and Take, Kroger, some of those folks. Yeah. And some of those aren't even here with us anymore. Mm-hmm. But he recognized that to be able to compete with that outside competition where they had longer seasons, that he was going to have enough volume to be able to sell in truckloads. I'm talking semi-loads. When somebody wanted 1,500 cases of corn, not 50 cases. And so it was a model that worked well. My dad went to work for him at 14 years old and learned a lot from Mr. Nichols. He was a brilliant grower, marketer, organizer. And my mom and dad bought that farm from him in the 60s because he had no children that wanted to take it over and he wanted to retire. My dad had some good years. By the time mom and dad took it over, the 60 growers had reduced down to about 15 growers. So my dad, to offset that, continued to expand his acreage. And when I was 15 or 16 years old, my dad was farming 1,200 to 1,500 acres of fresh market vegetables, shipping every place east of the Mississippi River.
Wow.
He was about 36 years old when he peaked. Interest rates, we know what they are today, 6.5%, 7%, up a little bit from a historic run where really we had the housing boom and lots of growth. That 6.5% and 7% looks high to some of our listeners today, but if you go back in history, Big Dan, you and I remember.
You remember the early 80s, late 70s. Yeah, it was double digits.
Double digit, 20. It hit 22% for a short period.
Yeah.
And my dad got wrapped up in it. He was trying to grow the business, and he was mortgaged to the hilt at 22% interest with the bank, and they owned everything but our front teeth for collateral. And we had a hailstorm early July, right as we were about ready to start harvesting several hundred acres of corn, cabbage, zucchini, squash, green bell peppers. And the hailstorm, a lot of times you'll get a pocket here, but it'll spare one farm, but it'll hit another. That 1,200 to 1,500 acres was not all contiguous. It was 100 acres you picked up from a farmer that had retired here, and it was another 100 over here, and it was 50 here and 200 there. But that hailstorm was so widespread that it took every single crop.
Wow.
And it was over on that day. Now, 20 minutes later, the sky cleared, the sun came out, and there was a rainbow. Little did we know, some of us, it takes a bigger stick for God to get our attention, and that was a big stick that day. We farmed the rest of the year, but it was over. In 1983, I stood at 19 years old and watched the bank sell every single thing that we owned, my mother's car, our house, all the tractors, all the land. Everything was gone. 20 years of my parents' work was gone in one day. Now, don't feel sorry for us. It was devastating. We didn't understand it completely at the time, but it was God saying, you know what? Hey, you dummies, you're going the wrong direction. I need you to go this way. And that was the beginning. It was the start over. And we started back at farmers markets, which were ironically at a historic low today. And I'm excited to say they're at a historic high.
Yes.
There are more farmers markets today than in the history of the United States. But in the late 70s and early 80s, they were at a historic low. My mother's generation said, I'm not doing that. I don't have time for that. That was what grandma did. And the European settlers went to the farmers markets. We're too busy for that. And so everything became about convenience. But during that period, we met a chef. We knew absolutely nothing about the chef world, Big Dan.
Yeah.
And here was this lady in a chef's jacket. And of all things, my dad was an expert zucchini grower. They were 7.5 to 8 inches long and 2.5 inches in diameter. And you put 20 pounds in a carton. And you put 88 cartons on a pallet, and you put 14 pallets on a semi, and he shipped semi-load after semi-load of zucchini. And here was this lady in a chef jacket wanting a zucchini squash the size of your pinky with a blossom on the end of it. And we thought this lady was absolutely crazy. Little did we know she knew way, way more about this than we did.
Now, this is Iris Balin Brody, right? Something like that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And she had trained in Italy, and she was an executive chef, and she was actually working for a brokerage firm in Cleveland. She had kind of a cushy situation. If they had investors in for the day, she would cook for them. If she didn't, she played, and she shopped at the farmers markets, and she met me, and she encouraged me to pick those zucchini blooms, and I did. Much to my dad's dismay. And he said, this lady will never be back. Well, she was back, and it kind of became a joke every Saturday at the market. And I brought him, and She started screaming like somebody had just stolen her purse. And all the farmers come running over to see what the problem was. Well, there wasn't a problem. And, of course, they're all laughing at me because I'm the laughing stock for picking that zucchini too small. Didn't I know what size to pick a zucchini squash? But she was so jazzed by this. She's like, I haven't seen anything like this since I've been in Italy. Do you realize what you have? And I did realize what I had at the moment. I had a real embarrassment as a young farmer amongst all of these senior farmers that saw me picking this zucchini squash too small. But she turned us on to another chef, and then another chef, and then another chef. And a very organic growth occurred, and we recognized that she had an understanding that we didn't. And we asked her if we could buy some of her time the next winter. Well, fortunately, she did not charge us for her time. She was just so excited that somebody was willing to listen. And we loaded all in the front seat of the pickup truck and went in to this big fancy place with a big long conference table. And she had the whole table covered with books earmarked in different places.
Wow.
And so that put Dad to work. And we started looking for old heirloom varieties that had been abandoned by commercial growers because they didn't have enough yield. They didn't have enough disease resistance. They wouldn't ship far enough. They wouldn't last long enough. All the criteria about producing massive tons per acre. This was about the quality per mouthful rather than the quality and the tons per acre.
Wow, that's a great line. That's a great line. I love that. You know, that's when you talk about taste and you talk about quality and you talk about value, you know, a lot of people are just like you were alluding to, basically, was the investment, the cost, the return on investment. And so consequently, you know, these growers are forced in some cases to increase volume without improving quality, in some cases degrading the quality. So what makes it different? What makes it profitable for you? What's that return on your investment? You know, what is it like when the consumer comes to your farmer's market or these chefs come to you and say, hey, this is what we want. This is what we're looking for. And then maybe through your R&D facility, you're able to provide that for them. You're able to grow something specific. So let's talk a little bit about that, the cost, the return on the investment, and that research and development that goes into it.
Well, Big Dan, I mean, the reality is, you know, there was no money and there was nobody loaning us any money. We went from one end of the agricultural world to the other. And, you know, we were so desperate to figure out a way to be able to survive in agriculture. And, you know, in today's agriculture, in the model, it takes a lot of dollars, it takes a lot of capital, and it takes land. And we had none of those things. And so here was Iris Palin saying, I believe if you would grow for the quality, grow for the integrity, grow for the flavor. She kept talking about flavor. There were a lot of European chefs that came into the country during that time period. And they were missing the flavors that they were used to finding in Europe because they were still growing those varieties that were for flavor rather than tons per acre. And so it gave us a little glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, that there might be able to be a niche that we could carve out in agriculture. In essence, we were taking those things and those varieties that there was so little demand for them that nobody was doing them. So it was a nice thing because there wasn't any competition. Plus, they were just too damn hard to do, and nobody wanted to do them. You couldn't get on a machine and to go harvest them. It was all we replaced labor for capital. We had no capital, so it was labor. And we started growing things that were in such small demand that nobody even knew that there was a demand for them. And so chefs encouraged us to start growing things. We pick a bean. Now, some of the listeners may have heard of a haricot vert. That's pretty common. But there's a bean. We had a chef that came out, and he was on his knees. He said, I never thought about the bean being this size instead of this size. He was holding his thumb and his pointer finger up, and he was holding it at about 3 inches. And he said, could I get him this size? It takes 3 men an hour and a half to pick a pound. There's not a lot of farmers out there that are looking to grow that bean because it's just ridiculously crazy to grow something like that. Mm. You're talking about what is the differentiating factor? There are, you know, a list I could give you of 10 pages long of what we try and do to differentiate the quality and the integrity of the product itself. Is it a product that they can't get someplace else? Is it something that we can supply them that they can't get anyplace else? What can we do to give them those sexy, wonderful, delicious, healthy, food-safe products that they can put on a plate and be able to blow their customers away? We target the top end of the market with chefs around the country. And we always say they're not really in the food business, they're in the entertainment business. The reality is that people will pay more for entertainment than they will for food. And so we're in the entertainment business. What can we do to provide the art for the paint for the artist, to give them those sexy pieces that they can put on the plate, that can top that plate, and they can talk about something that differentiates them from their competitors. Folks, can you imagine, if I say cucumber, we all think of one thing. A lot of those are coming out of Mexico where the labor is $3 to $5 a day. And guess what? We can't compete growing those. Imagine a cucumber, 1 inch long, half the diameter of a number 2 pencil, with a blossom the size of a 50-cent piece that's bright yellow attached to the end. How amazing is that? Float it in a soup, put it in a salad, put it in a mocktail, put it in a cocktail. You've just differentiated and given them something to be able to have something so different, so amazing, that it helps them differentiate. We're only of value if we're creating value for our customer.
You know, I love that, because what it does too is it not only gives the chef something unique, but I think what it does is it gives the end consumer, the person that's buying that meal, an appreciation, a better appreciation for where it came from. And we try to talk about that all the time on our TV show or on our podcast and our various radio network opportunities, of always talking about understanding where your food comes from. And I think, Farmer Lee, you're doing exactly that. You're educating the general public, and you're taking that opportunity to also learn and listen from those chefs as to what works best for them, and in essence, what is better for the consumer. And as we get more consumers to appreciate where that came from, we begin to change the narrative. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. You know, I was at the corporate headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland, and I got the privilege and honor to meet Mr. Marriott and Mr. Marriott's son. Mr. Marriott's about 90 years old, and the son's 70-something. And he said, you know, it's about telling the story. Now, I will say, with an asterisk and a caution, the consumer is more savvy, more intuitive, more knowledgeable, more aware, more hungry for information than they ever have been before.
Yeah.
So that story better be authentic. There was an article down in Tampa, Farm to Fable, because there were some restaurants that were marketing that they were using local farmers that weren't even in business anymore. You have to be able to be authentic. But people want to know where food is coming from. Now, you notice I haven't mentioned the word local a whole lot, and I know that's a hot buzzword. Look, what we're doing is difficult. The reality is we don't have enough customers in Erie County, where we're from, to be able to survive. We wouldn't have lasted 2 months if we were dependent upon the people that were smart enough and intuitive enough and interested enough in sustainable, regenerative grown food in the right way to be able to survive. So I don't get wrapped up on local. I like to talk about being able to share the story with people that are knowledgeable and interested and in tune with healthy, safe food and growing food in the right way. We have to have a broader audience than in a 5-mile radius of our farm or a 10-mile radius or whatever parameter you want to put on local. Look, if you can get something in your backyard that's grown locally and it's grown the right way, absolutely do it, embrace it, support it. I'm 100% in favor of that. But don't limit the farmer to his backyard, because there's just not enough demand in an area, especially with a niche item or specialty items. So we have to look at that market as a broader market. Everybody else does. Everybody in the world can ship anything, anywhere. and that's their audience and that's their market. So we can't be handcuffed with saying, well, we're only going to sell local. So we look for those customers that really embrace and support the philosophies of regenerative agriculture and growing products the right way.
Right on. You're listening to the In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show and our iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. I'm Big Dan Wilson, and our guest this week is Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back right after this with more with Farmer Lee. Rodock Leasing Sales and Service is your place for Wilson livestock trailers. Wilson builds reliable, lightweight, and corrosion-resistant aluminum livestock trailers. Wilson is known for their attention to animal and operator safety, as well as the best in biosecurity. Wilson delivers your best value and your lowest cost of operation. Rodock is your home for Wilson livestock trailers. Call Rodock Leasing Sales and Service today. Learn more at rodock.com. From generation to generation, farmers do their best to protect their land, livestock, and farm operations, but they can't do it alone. Salina Insurance Group has partnered with local ag professionals to do just that, offering the peace of mind needed to run a successful operation. Salina's products and coverages come from our first-hand experience and relationships with local agents. For total farm protection, come experience the Salina difference. Learn more at salinainsurance.com. Don't miss this year's Agro Expo, September 10th, 11th, and 12th. This 3-day event starts with a cattle highlight in Salina, Ohio on Thursday, September 10th. Then the grower event, Friday, September 11th in Laddie. And culminating on Saturday, September 12th with a community event also in Laddie, Ohio. For more information about the 5th annual Agro Expo, check us out on the web at agroexpo.com. That's agroexpo.com. Allen Davis Insurance Agency, your solutions provider in Wapakoneta, Lima, and Minster. Allen is a business owner and an active farmer. Trust Allen Davis Insurance Agency for auto, home, life, commercial, and total farm protection. For more information, check us out on the web at allendavisinsurance.com. You're listening to the In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show and the iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. Our guest today is Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio. Following up on what you just discussed, being able to persevere and to pivot, not only in the weather from 83, but COVID allowed you to pivot in another way by giving you the opportunity to ship those products and to be able to expand your market. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Big Dan, I'm glad that you used the word opportunity. There were times during COVID that it felt like deja vu. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's happening again. You got to understand, 100% of our business was chefs. And guess what? Restaurants were closed. Right. Now, some of them pivoted to try and do carry out, and they did everything they could to survive. And we did too. You see, our family grew over the last 40 years. There's 165 families, not all blood, but they're family to us. 165 families that are committed to growing the healthiest, safest food that exists. And when COVID hit, our business, really about 80% of it just went away literally overnight. Now, we were naive in thinking that this was going to be pretty short-lived at first. But the opportunity did arise, and that's the way we looked at it, as an opportunity. We launched a nationwide home delivery. We opened a farm market because, you see, the community, then the urgency and the importance, they were motivated to seek out local, healthy, safe food. And so we opened a farm market. We drug out a farm market that we had built and had out by the road that had been reallocated as an irrigation storage building. We drug it down the road and we power washed it and gave it a new coat of paint, and we opened up and started a farm market and made our product available to the community. And then the nationwide home delivery. And the chefs helped us with that. We sent them a box and told them what we were doing, and they shared with their friends. And those chefs and the community at large in the United States supported us, and they knew that they could call and order a box for their family, and we were able to ship that to them. Or if they had an Aunt Matilda or somebody that was suffering, and they knew that, and they were in a better position. They could order a box and ship it to them. And that is still going today. In fact, it's thriving. You can order a box at chefs-garden.com and get it delivered to yourself, or ship it to somebody in need, or somebody that, what a wonderful gift to send a box of healthy vegetables that says, I care about your health and well-being. Yes. And so that's something we've continued on today. And fortunately, the restaurants have recovered, and we're doing more restaurant business than we ever have, but we're also able to now ship nationwide to anybody that wants a box or a corporate gift. We can put a message in for them. And we love to talk to people here at the farm market. We have people that drive over an hour every week to come and load up on groceries. You know, this health scare that has happened with the lettuce is devastating, and we wouldn't wish it upon anybody. But it has been unbelievable to see the surge in reminding people to be able to know thy farmer. And our business has been up significantly since that occurrence. And it's been wonderful to see more people come in and be able to gather. Our lettuce sales are off the charts, Big Dan. It's been crazy.
That's fantastic. You know, and again, getting to that opportunity to pivot, let's talk about that research and development facility that you have there and the ability to be able to grow and to change the products that you're involved in. I remember doing a story several years ago about people down in Dayton, different businesses, farming businesses down in Dayton, that were working with a local farmer down there to reintroduce turkey red wheat. So the R&D that's led to the ancient grains that are being introduced on your farm and some of the new products. So first, talk about that R&D facility, and then what comes out of that in making sure that you're constantly changing and adding and getting better when introducing new products that you can sell to not only other chefs, but to the consumer.
Well, you know, the chefs were demanding flavor. And so we worked really hard to seek out varieties that were grown for the flavor. There's literally, like the family-owned grocery stores that have been shuttered over the years, seed companies. There used to be thousands of family-owned seed companies. And one by one, those went out. And the larger seed company went in and bought a smaller seed company out. They took the top 5 selling items and they abandoned the other 95%. And so one by one, we're losing thousands of these different varieties. So going and digging in and doing the research and finding some of these old varieties and growing them out and finding those varieties that are grown for the flavor. But it really started with some health issues with my father. And so not only were we growing for flavor, we recognized as we started digging into it, no pun intended, that the nutritional levels were higher the way we were growing, the methodologies that we were growing the product in. And so we spend a lot of time looking for varieties that could be of interest. We do some sweet potato varieties that you just would be blown away by. You'd look at them, you wouldn't even recognize it as a sweet potato because we all are accustomed to one sweet potato, the way it looks, it's the marketing over the years of having a sweet potato that looks a particular size and a particular shape and a particular color, and that's all we get. And there are some absolutely unbelievable varieties of sweet potatoes. There's hundreds of varieties of eggplant. There are hundreds and thousands of varieties of tomatoes and peppers. Wow. And so seeking those out has been really fun. You know, the heirloom or the ancient grains has been really exciting. What is it that has made us in the last 25 years have an explosion in gluten issues? We don't believe that we have gluten issues. We believe we have glyphosate issues. We're using more glyphosate to dry down the varieties that are being grown today commercially because they produce a higher yield. But those higher yields are also longer season. And, you know, the wheat is a berry, and it's got to be dry before you harvest it, or it sprouts, and it's no good. So a lot of times they've got to apply glyphosate to be able to kill the wheat down so that it will dry, and then they harvest it. Well, those traces of glyphosate are following through, and we believe they're attributing to not only gluten issues, but many other issues that we're seeing exploding as problems today in the world. We believe health and wellness is ultimately the end run. We think that once people recognize food as medicine, Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, thousands of years ago. It has never been more true than it is today. And when health entities and hospitals recognize this, when insurance companies recognize this, we're going to see some change. It's a tough sled when you see hospitals that have a budget of $3.72 a day to feed people that are in the hospital that are sick trying to get well. We have got to recognize that the food is medicine, and it's cheaper than the medicine.
Yeah,
with a whole lot less margin than the pharmaceutical and chemical companies. It's the best value going anywhere in the world. Good, healthy food.
And understanding that holistic approach toward what we eat, what we consume, what we take into our bodies is really the end result of years of passion, years of appreciation and love for farming that you have. And I think that's something that we're going to continue to grow as far as our appreciation as consumers because of our love and our understanding that holistic approach when it comes to our food is what ultimately leads to our healthier life.
That is exactly right. And Big Dan, I so much appreciate your interest and your willingness to have us come on and talk. I would just hope it challenges people to think, to do their own research, and to check. Look, my dad had a saying that we have to continue to make mistakes at a faster rate than the competition. And he also said we do mistakes really well. But he also said you damn well better learn from them. And so we continue to make mistakes as fast as we can, and we try and learn from them. We don't have this all figured out. But I'll tell you what, this regenerative agricultural process is working. We're seeing results as high as 30, 100, in some cases 300% higher nutritional levels than the USDA average. Now, the USDA average is too low, so we still have a long ways to go, and we're not getting that as consistently as we want, but we're on the right path. We're excited about this. We're excited that your listeners are excited about this because it's really fun to see people appreciating and understanding the value of what we're trying to do, and we're so grateful for their support, them coming to the farm market, of the chefs buying from us, of people ordering those products online and supporting the work that we're doing here. This isn't a not-for-profit. My dad said, why do we need a not-for-profit status? We've been able to have a not-for-profit farm for the last 40 years. Now, he said that jokingly. Obviously, we've been able to survive, and we've placed any profit back into research and development and trying to stabilize the farm. And that's really been the priority. Today happens to be the 6th year of our father's death, who was really the inspiration behind a lot of the work and research that we're doing today. August 4th, 2020, we lost Dad, and there's not a minute that goes by on the farm that we don't think about him. He was inspired by a fellow by the name of Dr. Scow, who was an animal veterinarian and saw so many occurrences in animals and livestock, he kept wondering why. And so he started digging in, no pun intended, and he recognized that it was deficiencies in the soil. This whole story weaves all the way back to soil because it's all about the health and the life and the vibrancy of soil. And that's really the key to this conversation.
Right on. And what a great way to honor your dad with that continued passion, with that continued appreciation, and that continued growth to be able to provide high quality foods for consumers and chefs out there. It's just a great story, and I can't tell you how excited we are to have you on our podcast and looking forward to coming up there and having you on our TV show. Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio, has been our guest. And before we let you go, let's talk about that website, a great way to connect to not only the Culinary Vegetable Institute that you have, your farmer's market, but an opportunity to buy some of that product and get it delivered to your home.
Absolutely. chefs-garden.com. And you can go to home delivery. Instagram. I would love to connect with your listeners and for them to share any great foods that they go to the farmer's market and pick up this summer. Share a picture of what you created. Farmer Lee Jones, 3 different words on Instagram, and connect with us and share with us what you're doing. You know, we have a TV show out right now. If you have Hulu, if you have One Nation, if you have Amazon, go to Chef's Garden. You just go to those shows and then type in Chef's Garden. We work with chefs around the country. And this is really based around a premise of the book, The Chef's Garden. And it's to show the diversity. You know, look, Big Dan, you and I do a butternut like Mom did. You cut it in half, you bake it at 375 for 45 minutes with brown sugar and butter, and we have them twice a year.
And a little Parmesan, little Parmesan.
There you go, and we're done with butternut squash for the year, you know? But the idea is on each show, we have a different chef from around the country. They come into the farm, we walk the fields, they pick a vegetable. We go back to the Culinary Vegetable Institute, and they show the diversity in a single ingredient. Let's just go with the butternuts example. Why not a butternut ice cream? Why not a butternut soup? Why not a butternut chip? And show the diversity in a single vegetable. And each show is around a different vegetable. If you're into this sort of thing, go to that TV show and watch it. We have a lot of fun on them. Big Dan, I am, again, just so grateful for the chance to be able to visit with you and your listeners today. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to get you out to the farm to share with you some of our work here.
I have waited a long time to get you on my podcast, Farmer Lee, and I am thrilled for the opportunity to hook up with you on the farm. Farmer Lee Jones from the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio, has been our guest. Farmer Lee, thanks for joining us.
It has been my absolute pleasure.
And you've been listening to the In Ohio Country Today podcast, part of the In Ohio Country Today TV show and our iHeartMedia Radio Ag Network. I'm Big Dan Wilson. We'll have a link to the Chef's Garden website at our website at inohiocountry.com. Have a good day, everybody.